are these people?
I saw this go way undercovered. Not many people in the space, I think, picked up on it. Luckily, we have people like Alan Macleod, who is going to give us the info. But Congress revives Cold War tactics with new anti-communism school curriculum. Care Bear, as an educator, you might want to know about this one. So, yeah. So, Congress has just passed a new bill that will see the U.S. spend huge sums of money redesigning much of the public school system around the ideology of anti-communism. The crucial Communism Teaching Act is now being read in the Senate, where it is all but certain to pass. The move comes amid it's already done the House, right? The move comes amid growing public anger at the economic system and increased public support for socialism. Funny how that works when killings of CEOs distract from this kind of stuff, you know? The crucial Communism Teaching Act, in its own words, is designed to teach children that, quote, certain political ideologies, including communism and totalitarianism, which they're automatically equating, right, conflict with the principles of freedom and democracy that are essential to the founding of the United States. I think there was a lot more blood being essential to the founding of the United States.
Conflicts of our money.
Yes.
Conflicts of our profit.
Yes. Profit. Profit. The rules of acquisition. Yes.
Yeah, you can see freedom and democracy all you want, but that's what you really mean.
Yes. Profit and blood. That's what we run on. So I thought I'd do some digging as well. Right? This is sponsored by Rep. Salazar Maria Elvira. Right? Nothing like Florida 27 to fucking fuck everyone over. Good for Florida. I apologize for my people. They know not what they do. That one knows. But so the purposes of this act are the following: to help families, civic institutions, local communities, local educational agencies, high schools, and state educational agencies to prepare high school students to be critically responsible and knowledgeable adults. That's what it seeks to do. 2, to ensure that high school students in the United States, A, learn that communism has led to the deaths of over 100 million victims worldwide. What about the fucking... Where's my button? Capitalism. What about that shit, huh? What about the fucking victims of capitalism? Huh? What about them? Understand the dangers of communism and similar political ideologies, and understand that 1,500,000,000 people still suffer under communism. Okay. Where?
So this, you reported on this story.
Yeah.
It had to be at least over a year.
Yep.
Where I think it was with you that you mentioned, like in Massachusetts where I used to live, there was, I think it was on a standardized exam there. And I was familiar, this was really hitting hard because it was a high school where in one of the communities I worked in that I knew of this high school very well. So, but the girl, I think, had it like on her exam, like I believe in like her history class, had questions that related to this kind of like in terms of more or less anti-communism things. And I want to say in this way, as the kids will say, she was woke as hell. So she was able to kind of swerve that and basically give the woke answers in terms of, well, capitalism is this, and this.
Yep.
And I think it got to the point where I think, it got reported on, I think, in the news. So I think she was speaking. I don't remember the clip, but I remember having this conversation with you about this. So
I don't, but I smoke a lot of weed, so
I feel like it was with you. I feel like it was with you.
Might have been.
I think this was like at like when we started the show. But point is, like, this is why I want to leave teaching. Because it's a form of manufacturing consent in terms of having you think about communism. And you're right, this is kind of like Cold War tactics, which by association, probably not in the same way anymore. Things of terms of, I think mostly like Cuba at this point, you know, honestly. Like not necessarily Russia anymore, because Russia was kind of like the boogeyman back in the day. But like thinking about countries like Cuba, still is, but I think kind of low-key Russia, China, Cuba, like like formerly socialist, communist, or I would argue kind of communist-leaning countries where, you know, it's kind of like, oh, that's bad. You know, there's no choice really, you know, where, as we keep saying, like, look, if you're going to do this, you got to do it right. You have to give pros and cons to both. Like, if you're going to give, I'm hearing all the, like, if you're going to give all the cons of communism, you need to give the pros. Conversely, if you're going to like hype up capitalism, you need to give the cons as well, especially for people of color who are subjected to issues in the West. That's not necessarily going to fly, you know. But we're kind of seeing this already, like especially in the South, of being like, oh, slavery was termed of like how they're phrasing it now is like internships, that kind of bullshit, and it's like, no, like, so the fact that like, yeah, it was a Republican, obviously, who brought up this bill, but the idea that it passed the Senate, that means Democrats voted for that shit too. So they low-key support this idea because, again, it ties to money. It ties to their donors who do not want their population to be aware of the fact that they're being exploited at the end of the day. So
I swear we share a brain.
You can't have so many Luigi Mangionis that will threaten, so to speak, that will threaten the system in that way, and that will threaten their bottom line. So,
well, read those numbers for the people, right? This is who voted for this. We got what? 156 Democrats vote yay. 171 Republicans. Seems like, you know, it's a big club and we ain't in it, huh? So let's look at some of the specifics, right? Who do you think voted for this? Well, it's pretty obvious. Jeffries, Pelosi, Watchman Schultz, just a few. I picked a few. There was, again, how many? 156. So I was not going to subjugate people to all the yays, right? But I found some of these a little more telling, right? These are the ones that, A, know that this bill is bullshit, but B...
But couldn't make a stand. Do you have who did?
Yes, yes. So, let's look at the not votings. We got Massey, right? I know a bunch of people have been super happy about him and his antics recently. Well, turns out, you know, he might not be on the up and up, you know, on everything. So this to me is to tell your donors, hey, don't worry about it. I won't get in the way. That's what the not votings to me mean, right? Bowman, not voted, right? Okay. Frost, not voting.
Maxwell.
Yes. Right. So that's the ones that I feel like at least want to show their donors that they're not in the way, right?
Right.
So some of the no's got Boobert here on a nay, right?
Nay.
MTG from Georgia, right? Nay, right? Jayapal, nay. AOC, nay. Omar, nay. Talib, nay.
Okay, right? So at least on this issue,
yeah, they
squad members
Someone's got to be opposition,
Right.
So,
but it was okay for them again. But it's okay for them to do that because it's not going to. In this case, it's not going to affect them to say no.
Exactly.
So when it counts, when we want them to count for something, so yeah, like this is just more of a symbolic thing, if anything else.
Yep.
So
this is just to keep up appearances.
We want them to do for things that actually count. That's when they don't do it.
Which is why I feel like
they know
these
going to get majority votes anyway.
Right. The not voting
by this point, point, like it was Republican led, like given that this, this was, I guess,
Salazar or whatever
in the last year or so. It really wouldn't matter given it's Republican control. So again, like
you should have been able to vote no on this easy. Should have been an easy nay vote.
Bowman should have voted no. Well, should have said no.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised in the way of Matthew, even Frost, because that corporate, Frost more so corporate shell.
Wasn't Bowman education?
Bowman as a teacher.
Okay, yeah. I remember.
No better.
Right?
So
you'd think, but no, that's to me, these not votings, when a majority was already there, the fuck you do it.
Right.
So anyway, to continue, we'll get into some details of what this actually fucking does. The Crucial Communism Teaching Act, in its own words, is designed to teach children that certain political ideologies, including communism and totalitarianism, conflict with the principles of freedom and democracy that are essential to the founding of the United States. Although sponsored by Republicans, it enjoys widespread support from Democrats and is focused on, guess what? China, Venezuela, Cuba, and other targets of U.S. empire. These two in particular. Please keep your eyes on these two coming up, especially this one, right? Article in MintPress now about Trump's views on Venezuela and how that might play out in the next term. So keep your eyes out. But the wording in the bill has many worried that this will be a centerpiece of a new era of anti-communist hysteria similar to previous McCarthyist periods, which we're definitely in one. The curriculum will be designed by the controversial Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation and will ensure all American high school students understand the dangers of communism and similar political ideologies, and learn that communism has led to the deaths over 100 gazillion victims worldwide. It will also develop a series titled Portraits in Patriotism that will expose students to individuals who are victims of the political ideologies. Okay, so I'm sure they'll throw Navalny in. Why not? So, the 100 million figure originates with the notorious pseudoscience text, The Black Book of Communism. Why's it gotta be black? Huh? Y'all fuckers. A collective of political essays, the book's central claim is that 100 million people have perished as the result of communist ideology. However, even many of its contributors and co-writers have distanced themselves from it, claiming that the lead author was obsessed with reaching the 100 million figure, to the point that he simply conjured millions of deaths from nowhere. And that's people who were wanting to help write this. Even they're like,
God.
So its methodology was also universally panned, with many pointing out that the tens of millions of Soviet Nazi losses during World War II were attributed to communist ideology. This means that both Adolf Hitler himself and many of his victims are counted towards the vastly overinflated figure. Collin, they put all the Nazis the fucking Soviets killed in this. That's what they put. Those were victims, apparently. Sound fucking familiar? Does this sound familiar to anybody? No? Just fucking me? Okay. The book was condemned by Holocaust remembrance groups as whitewashing and even lionizing genocidal fascist groups as anti-communist heroes. Oh, God. Anyway, it gets worse. The principal organization promoting the 100 million figure today is the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation, which has shown a similar level of both anti-communist devotion and methodological rigor. The group, set up by the US government in 1993, hi, that's my birth year, how you doing? Added all worldwide COVID-19 deaths to the Victims of Communism. Remember, they threw COVID-19 deaths in here.
Oh, God.
Arguing that coronavirus was a communist plot because it originated in China. These people who will be designing the new curriculum that will be taught in social studies, government, history, and economic classes across the country. As long as it doesn't touch my home ec classes, all right? You know, those are important.
Did you have home ec?
I didn't. I missed out on that. So we didn't have any. By the time I was going through high school, like shop and home ec and all that stuff was gone. You know, so unfortunate. Right. I know we had a vocational school right next door, so like they did have like there was a cooking class that I know some of my friends were taking, and like auto body and shop were over there as like dual stuff. But anyway, one of the central goals of this bill is also to ensure that high school students in the United States understand that 1,500,000,000 people still suffer under communism. This is a clear reference to China, a rapidly developing country that in just 2 generations has gone from one of the poorest on earth to a global superpower, challenging and even surpassing the United States on many quality of life indicators. The bill goes on to detail how the school curriculum, okay, here's the kicker, pay attention everyone, focus on ongoing human rights abuses by such regimes such as the treatment of Uyghurs in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region by the Chinese regime and its aggression towards pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong and Taiwan, who it labels a democratic friend of the United States. You hear that? Y'all listening over in the Green Party? Y'all hear that shit? Huh? That's what y'all are complicit in now. Y'all push these bullshit narratives, and this is what you fucking get. So, fuck you, Butch. Anyway, thoughts so far?
This is why I hated high school history.
Uh-huh.
I knew there was a like world history when I took that my freshman year, I loved. But then when we got to American, like US history, I hated it. And I had at least my sophomore year AP, which I really couldn't stand. But again, it's like, look, as I said earlier, if you're going to do that, you got to be fair. You got to do pros and cons to all of it and have that discussion. That I think would be worthwhile having. But again, you can't radicalize these kids too much. No, actually, I'll take that back. You can't radicalize these kids at all.
Right.
Because, again, it affects profits. They want these kids to be able to go into these industries, to be their robots, and not think about, the implications of what this means as far as the macroverse that is our world and how it plays into, the exploitation of other people who they want to kind of take over. China, Russia, like Cuba is basically China, locked out right now. Venezuela, they also want to lock out right now. Generally, the global South, they want to, well, I wouldn't say lock out, but they want to continue to exploit their resources to benefit of our wealth, and to be damned that if enough people, especially within Gen Z, becomes more aware of that and actually make some noise about it. To hell with that. So we would rather just socially condition these kids to think this way and not critically think about this. But I say that, and I don't think that's going to work necessarily. Only because with the internet, and well, TikTok may not be a thing by next month, but but there's enough information to be had on the internet alone that, and I think at this point, people in this country, especially the youth, are beginning to put two and two together on their own, even without like the brainwashing really that is becoming more rampant in this country right now. And so you can do it all you want, but I don't think at this point it's really going to be as effective as they think it's going to be, given how much more savvy children are and how much information that they're able to get easily. And then you're going to go into censorship, which this is a form of censorship.
Oh, it's more than that. This is
right.
Programming. This is exactly what they talk about communism doing,
Right.
like propaganda and all that. That's exactly what this is. Look, so they added this.
Ironically, is what they will probably teach in school anyway.
Yeah.
But it's the very thing that they're using to.
Now they're making sure of it, that's what's happening.
Right.
Right. So look here at this clause B is the curriculum shall be updated periodically to ensure the curriculum includes both past and present communist and totalitarian regimes. Right. So they want carte blanche later to say whatever they want to say to the children. Right.
Right.
So
I noticed they didn't say anything regarding Palestine.
No.
But I'm sure that would be next.
No. None of the victims of capitalist regimes are going to be in here. None of that. Why would they ever do such a thing? Just the Uyghurs, the fake bullshit Uyghur story that, plenty of fucking idiots are willing to push because they know someone who told them. So even though there's been no signs of that. Also, feel free to talk to anybody who actually lived through some of those Soviet communist regimes and go ask them how they feel about it. Because there's videos online, you can look them up. May not be what you think. If anything, they don't like the new Russian capitalism. They want to go back. So, I literally watched one the other day where an old, 90-year-old grandma's like, people sometimes too rich now. So much riches, you can't fathom how rich they are. And I'm like, yeah, base babushka. I love it. So yeah, this is bad. And I feel bad for people who bought into that bullshit. But anyway, so, and the portraits and patriotism is just going to be hilarious. It'll just be a ton of CIA agents practically, I'm sure.
Right.
But anyway, furthermore, many of the victims of Communism's Memorial Foundation's Witness Project case studies, likely the source for the Portraits and Patriotism series, are from
China.
That includes Rushan Abbas, the founder and executive director of the Campaign for Uyghurs, a pressure group funded by, what did I say a minute ago? CIA front organization, the National Endowment for Democracy. Yay, the NED. Everyone's favorite CIA cutout. Abbas was also previously employed as a translator at the notorious Guantanamo Bay torture camp. That's their patriot that they're gonna push on everyone. So, the U.S. is currently engaged in a quickly escalating Cold War against China that includes channeling money and support to separatist movements, including those in Xinjiang, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. As MintPress News has reported in September, the House of Representatives passed a bill that authorized how much? $1.6 billion to be spent on anti-Chinese messaging worldwide. So, but yet, we don't interfere in any other countries. So, the other major target of the bill will likely be socialist or communist-led governments in Latin America. The act's sponsor is Maria Elvira Salazar, a Republican congressperson representing Miami, a part of Florida's famously conservative Cuban American community. In 2023, she introduced the Force Act, which attempted to block any U.S. president from normalizing relations with Cuba unless its government is overthrown. She has repeatedly condemned Biden for easing the illegal U.S. sanctions on Venezuela, and in July, she denounced what she described as the socialist curse in Central America and the Caribbean, singling out Cuban, Venezuelan, Honduras, and Nicaraguan as countries requiring, you heard it, regime change. Sounds like Hillary Clinton to me, but what do I know? Mm-hmm. Apparently a Republican from Miami. And all those fucking Cubans, I'm looking at you, I know you, right? I go look at where your family actually came from in Cuba. How do you think they got kicked out, huh? Y'all want to really look into things? What, y'all think y'all were just some nice little farm workers that got thrown out? Someone might have owned some plantations, is all I'm saying. She is, however, an avid supporter of the far-right president of Argentina, Javier Milei, accepting his invitation to attend his inauguration. Argentina, she said, you remember that country that a lot of Nazis fled to, that one, is going to set the course and point of reference for the rest of Latin America as to the way that a country should be governed. And it's looking real great over there. Just ask them. Free market economy, small government, individual liberties, freedom, private sector, no corruption. That's what we're trying to do. Perhaps the only foreign country she praises more than Argentina is, ding, 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 Israel, whose actions she has supported at every step, even going so far as to denounce what she called the one-sided pressure for a ceasefire in Gaza. Salazar's bill passed easily, 327 to 62, with limited opposition from Democrats or Republicans who voted for and against in it in roughly equal measures. Even many members of the Progressive Caucus voted in favor, proving that anti-communism is as popular on the left as it is on the right. The imminent passing of the crucial Communism Teaching Act harkens back to early anti-communist periods in American history, namely the Red Scare of the 1910s and the McCarthyist era of the 1940s and 1950s. During those times, organized labor movements were ruthlessly attacked. Workers from all professions, including professors, government officials, and teachers, were fired en masse. Sounds familiar? And some of the America's brightest minds had their careers derailed due to their political leanings. This included singer Paul Robeson, actors like Charlie Chaplin and Marilyn Monroe, playwright Arthur Miller, and scientist Albert Einstein, to name a few. The point of these operations was to break any opposition to the power of the state and big business and ensure that the United States maintained its capitalist course. Today, however, fewer Americans than ever are happy with the current political and economic system. A recent Gallup study found that only 22% of the public are satisfied with how things are going, with a majority responding that they are very dissatisfied and that 22% are fucking idiots. Living standards have been stagnating or dropping for decades, and alternative economic systems becoming more desirable. A 2019 poll from Axios found that 48% of adults under 35 prefer socialism to capitalism, including 57% of female respondents. Y'all ladies know what's up, huh? Nice to meet you. There are some signs that Washington is slowly moving towards a new McCarthyist era. President Trump, for example, has promised to carry out mass deportations of leftists once he becomes president, stating, I will order my government to deny entry to all communists and all Marxists. Those who come to join our country must love our country. We don't want them if they want to destroy our country. So we're going to be keeping foreign Christian-hating communists, socialists, and Marxists out of America. People tell me they're the worst people. At the end of the day, either the communists destroy America or we destroy the communists, he explained. But he also stated that American citizens espousing anti-capitalist views would be purged. So, if I don't know, any groups you might know decided that, like, you know, Trump's like MAGA base and communism were gonna be like a thing you could stick together. Maybe y'all were fucking dumb, huh? No? Okay, just me? My question is, what are we going to do with the ones that are already here, that grew up here? I think we have to pass a new law for them, he said. Uh-huh. That Trump would actually deport millions of American citizens en masse appears like too drastic a step right now, but it is clear that both Democrats and Republicans are serious in their anti-communist convictions. Therefore, the crucial Communism Teaching Act will likely only be the start of this campaign. Thoughts, Care Bear?
What more do I need to say other than what I said already?
I don't know. You know, it's just I haven't heard anyone else talk about this. It's been what? How long now? This has been out? You know? Like,
I have no idea. How long has this been out?
I'll go look at the article. I think it's December 13th. This article was out. So
It's been out for a few days. But
yeah. Yeah.
But again, I think, well, again, it's the idea of, it's not to say I hate saying this, but I think it kind of highlights what I said in the last segment, that we, even in independent media, tend to be distracted by the mainstream stuff and not kind of focus on the stuff like this that actually would be important in terms of educating and kind of informing. This affects us because
affects everybody.
Well, assumingly, but because we wouldn't be able to, like, YouTube would, well, still can, probably could, but this idea of this segment actually, or more or less even reporting on this would be bad. And again, especially with Trump, like, who, at least with Democrats, that kind of both sides, you'll be like, oh, like, we're against that, but then they'll do some more sneaky stuff. Like, Trump will actually kind of be out there and be like, I oppose this shit, and I will, like, fuck free speech, fuck censorship, like, I'm gonna do it. And, like, there's gonna be big noise about that. But ultimately, this will affect how things are taught, which, again, this is one of the reasons why I want to leave the field, because you're like, the idea, especially if you're teaching history, like, there's always multiple sides to a story.
Yep.
And I think, just as far in speaking in equitable terms, you have to hear, like, even if you don't agree, like, it's good practice to hear the perspectives of everyone who is involved, and either try and make a decision out of that, or try to find the middle ground in that, if it's not necessarily obvious. That's what, in my mind, as a teacher, you should be, especially if you're teaching anything regarding the humanities, of how you should be presenting things. Like, and I think, though, it's a lot, not to say easier, I think there's just been a lot of noise, again, going off from the last segment regarding race, that people are going to be somewhat more sensitive to. But now it's kind of coming into more political ideology. And again, when even in our education system, there is a profit motive, right? Like, it's not going to help. And I'm right now, in my mind, I'm thinking colleges, because they're run like a business.
Yep.
So it's not going to help. Well, right now, I'll make the argument, like, student loans and all that kind of stuff, and we've talked about this, that it's not incentivizing high school students who realize, oh, I'm low or middle class. The idea of getting a scholarship would be next to none. I don't have the money necessarily to afford this tuition and I don't want to go in debt in order to get it.
Right.
So what are my alternatives here? And I think people might believe, or at least the elites might believe, that, oh, well, the reality is in order to have education, like, in fact, like a lot of jobs are tied to you getting a college education. So they think that, oh, that's going to push teenagers into getting college. And we're seeing now that's not necessarily the case, you know, like, especially if you can get stuff on YouTube. Like,
Yeah.
now I say this, like, I don't necessarily. I, I'm kind of mixed on this, but I've been very transparent on this. The reality is, unfortunately, given our state of the world, you need a college degree for most.
Well, it's what a high school degree was like. Okay,
right.
in the
You
50s.
do need it. But even in that, I say, like, if you're able to go to community college first and then, you know, but I say, like, know what you're getting yourself into if you are going to go to college. Like, know that you're going to be in debt. Like, and try and figure out a plan of how you can pay it off as soon as possible. If you do all of that, then fine. But don't go into the attitude of, like I did, like, oh, like, once I go to college and get a job, I should be able to pay those loans fine. Don't think that way. Like, think in terms of the industry, how much it's going to cost. If it's economically makes sense for you to take that, knowing like what the cost of that industry is, like, will you be paid enough to be able to pay off that debt within a decade? And if
Right.
not, you might need to evaluate. Or if you don't care, then go ham. But it's still the idea of having people, well, students, be aware of the reality of how capitalism is completely fucked and how it is fucking other countries that, you know, again, I don't think it's going to work in as well as they think it's going to. Because there's so much stuff on the internet already that people can see.
Well,
And not only that,
that's
like,
the
people
thing is
travel.
you see them
Right.
already trying
People,
to like control
right.
TikTok and
Especially if you're coming from memes, like, you're able to travel and see how people live. Like, and I've been very fortunate that I've been able to travel just a little bit, relatively, but still seeing able to see enough where I'm just kind of like, this country is shit.
yeah.
Really? So again, I don't think it's going to work well, especially among people who have the means to get the information or at least go abroad or whatever and see different ways of running the show in different countries and then being able to be like, well, why aren't we doing this here? Like, I don't think it's going to be good, but what do I know?
No, this is going to be bad, and the ramifications of it, like, they could also decide to expand this. You know, it makes it easier to do that. So, you know, keep an eye on things, especially after that passes. How that actually, if it passes, you know, and you could theoretically call your senators, you know, at the minute and tell them to not. So that's an option. But and it sounds like Republicans are throwing a ton of bills through the House right now. You know, this being one of them, right? Like, you know, so we'll see how that works out. I'm sure there's going to be more to come. So be on P's and Q's, everybody. But anyway, talking about this is why we're demonetized. So you can go to ko-fi.com/indienewsnetwork or scan that QR code on your screen or go in that description below and give us a little $1 due. We appreciate it. But if you can't get it, just like and subscribe, hit the share button, and let us know what you think. How do you, especially if you're a teacher, how is this going to affect you? You know, get in that comment section. But otherwise, thanks for watching.